Hello, welcome to Aging Well in America. I'm Anne Marie Guattari, your host. Every day, between 6,000 and 7,000 people turn 65 in the United States. There are approximately 5.5 million people who are aged 85 or older. In less than 30 years, that number will grow to 20 million. 20 million people will be 85 years or older in our country. Are we ready? Is America ready? There's so much good work going on around the country, around the world, and right here in our own community. And we have with us today one of those people who is doing some of that good work. I'd like to welcome and introduce Frances Shani Parker.
Yes.
Author, consultant, speaker, a whole host of things you have done really in a volunteer capacity to become an expert on elder care issues. But before we go into that, let's set the stage. You were a Detroit educator for 30 years in the Detroit schools, a principal the latter part of your career. Mm-hmm. Tell us, you have a great story of how you came into the elder care world, and then which led you to your most passionate work, which is a volunteer for hospice organizations.
Okay. First, I'd like to begin by saying what hospice is, because some people may not know. Hospice is a philosophy of quality end-of-life care for terminally ill patients and their families. And so how I ended up in hospice, I was a Detroit public school principal, and it was in an area that had a low-income housing project area. And there was a man who used to come around the school, and over a period of months, I noticed his conversations were getting rather bizarre and with invisible people, and I knew he had some form of dementia. And it turned out he also had AIDS. He also had very little family support. He was not a close friend of mine, but there was no support, and he was not in a position to take care of his own needs. So I helped him, and he eventually died. And
he died in where?
He died in a nursing home. And over a period of months, I was thinking, this probably won't happen again. I want to make it clear, too, I was not a person who was interested in, even enjoyed working with sick people. I had decided that when I was in the 5th grade, I'd be an educator. I was not attracted to the healthcare professions. So I was a little surprised a few months after he died. Then another man came along. I also did not know him well, and he also had AIDS, and I ended up helping him. At the same time, now I was still principal of a school. I had plenty to do, and I was wondering why these people were coming into my life. So after I was no longer dealing with the second man, I ran into a friend of mine who said she was a hospice volunteer, and when she told me what she did, it was pretty much what I had already been doing over the 3-year period when these two men came into my life. And so I decided to get the certification and became an official hospice volunteer. And
what
that's
is
what I've been
an
doing.
official hospice volunteer?
Well, that means you've had the classes and you're certified by a hospice organization to go into.
And how did you use that certification, Frances?
Well, at the end of the classes, I was given an option of going to hospice patients at home or else going to nursing homes. And I chose nursing homes because I thought they would be more of a need for my service there. And I just thought it would be interesting to be in a nursing home and where I could be around a lot of people.
So you spent a good number of years in nursing homes with people at the very end of their lives.
Right, over 10 years. And I did various nursing homes, primarily in the Detroit area.
Okay. And that became the basis for your book, Becoming Dead Right, a hospice volunteer in urban nursing homes. Right. I'd like to read a little introduction that Dr. Peter Lichtenberg, who is the director of Wayne State's Institute of Gerontology, and people who know Dr. Lichtenberg know that when he says something, he knows what he's speaking about, and he gave you a beautiful tribute to your book. I'd just like to read a couple of sentences. Ms. Parker's book brings the stories of urban elders to the fore. Poverty, which so often makes people invisible, is not ignored here, but the stories of the human struggle, fear, kindnesses, and hopes predominate. So you have done a great service for people of the Detroit area, the urban areas all over, as he said, bringing their stories and their situations at the end of their lives to the forefront. So can you tell us a little bit about do you have a story or two that you think is really compelling? And
Well, I think probably the biggest story is the story of why the book how it really came about, because I wasn't planning on writing a book at the time, but in the nursing homes, where there are so many stories, I did my own research, and I found out that there really weren't any books out there that dealt with urban nursing homes with people who were in hospice care, and also there weren't the voices of people of color weren't being represented. So I decided to write a book, and that's how the book. That's the biggest story, because, as I said, I hadn't planned on writing a book, but I saw there was a need. And the reason why that diversity is so important is that over 75 million baby boomers are already becoming seniors, and they're taking care of their parents, and they are a very diverse population. And while I was being a hospice volunteer, I often wrote poems and prose about what I was doing, and I was active in Detroit's writing community, and I would be reading these at different venues. And I noticed there was a great need among people. People would come up to me afterwards and tell me about their caregiving stories and how they were handling their bereavement. So I knew that there was a need for people to know more about it. There are so many stories I can tell you.
Tell us one.
One is that, okay, this is a story that was a real challenge for me. I had one patient, and basically she did not communicate. She made sounds, and once in a while she would say a few words. But when I would go there to visit her, I never was sure what she wanted, and so I was, trying everything. But I would just keep on talking, just like I'm talking to you. And I find and whenever I went, I always made sure I looked around the room, because I'm always going to be an advocate, and that's what a volunteer should be when you go around. Anyway, I knew from her, the paper I received when she was assigned to me, that she was Baptist, she was from the South, and so I thought, well, maybe she, might like gospel music, and because I knew Mahalia Jackson is considered one of the greatest gospel singers of all time. So I decided I would get some of Mahalia Jackson's music, and that this was before iPods, and so I used a CD player, and I put the headphones on her. And this is a woman who had just been lying in bed most of the time, I mean weeks and weeks, little responding. Once in a while she'd whisper something. Anyway, I put the headphones on, and I turned on Let the Saints Go Marching In, and the next thing I knew, her eyes popped open. She actually started clapping, which was really surprised me. And she was clapping right along with the music, like she was in a choir in Alabama somewhere. And, I knew I had reached her. And she actually whispered, "It's beautiful." And I wrote a poem about this. And at the very end, it says, "A CD player is such an easy thing for me to bring. But before I left, you said you loved me twice."
Oh, my.
So that was a really moving story.
Yeah, it is. That's a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that.
And there's so many, and that's another story that shows the importance of music with patients.
Like you said, a CD player is so easy to bring. And,
right, it was.
And really that translates into anyone who is, even if they're not in hospice or at the end of their life, if dementia or anyone who doesn't have a lot of activities in their day, in their elder years.
Right.
Yeah, that is really fascinating. Speaking about nursing homes, you chose nursing home hospice as opposed to going into people's individual homes. To spend your volunteer time, and you had explained you thought that the voices of that population was not being heard. How do you, during the time you were doing it, when you were really involved, tell me about some changes that you may have seen, changes for the better, of course.
Well, slowly, changes are being made. There's a movement going on around the country, and it's called Cultural Change in Nursing Homes. And basically what it's about is making nursing homes more person-centered. And by person-centered, it means residents plus the staff, everybody will have input, and what's going on will be more like a real home and more reflective of everybody's needs. So what is beginning to happen and would be like changes in schedule. Everybody may not want to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and eat breakfast. Changes in when everybody eats, takes a shower. Changes in like bringing more nature into.
I'm sorry, Francis, when you say changes, so the residents themselves are not on such a strict schedule.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Right, that's exactly what I mean. So because it's more person-centered.
Right.
So whatever each person wants. I want to emphasize too that almost all of my patients share a room with 3 other people. If you can imagine that you're dying and there may be 2 other people in the room with dementia and some other illnesses. So also more privacy, more nature coming in, more technology. And when I say technology, I mean things that are going to give the staff more time to be with patients, because some of the things that are going on are now in technology. Now, I won't even get into robots, but robots are also something coming along in the future, not only for nursing homes, but also for patients at home. So there are a lot of things that are taking place, but they aren't taking place fast enough. And at the very last chapter of my book is called Baby Boomer Haven. And what I did was, rather than just make up a nursing home and just come up with some ideas on my own, I researched and found best practices going on all around the country, and created an imaginary nursing home that really isn't imaginary, because everything going on is going on somewhere, but it's not going on in enough nursing homes.
Right,
So,
and as a package.
As a package.
Yeah.
So people can read at the end, this is what an ideal nursing home should look like. So you have, and not because even in the architecture, so you have a circular path so that people with dementia don't have to walk into a dead end and not know what to do and get confused. There's just so many things that can take place in a person-centered home where people are honored. People come to a nursing home. I always compare nursing homes. I have a chapter where I compare it to schools, because it's just like students come and then they graduate. And so I always say when people come, they have a history, and so it needs to be known. And at my school where I was principal, it was called a school-wide service learning school. Every child in the school and the staff all did service. And so we had a partnership with nursing homes. So, and it's tied in with the curriculum. So like in 4th grade, after students learned how to write letters, they actually wrote letters to people in nursing homes, or else to children's hospital. So, and that component is also in this ideal nursing home.
So in this ideal nursing home, there would be obviously a role, and I'm thinking a big role for volunteers.
Oh, big role for volunteers.
So what is excuse me, what is the volunteer's day like in a nursing home?
Are you talking about a hospice volunteer?
Yes, from your
Okay,
experience.
right, because it's it's a little different when because as a hospice volunteer, I'm going in not, first of all, I may be going to see a total stranger, but I'm going in to see someone who has been diagnosed as having 6 months to live. They are terminally ill. Even though they may live more than 6 months, actually most people in hospice live only an average of 3 weeks. And some of them a lot of them need to be referred a lot sooner. But what I go in and do is, first of all, look around the room to see what's been going on. You can learn a lot. If I see a glass and there's no ice or water in it, they may be thirsty. You can, you look over the person, see how they're being dressed, if they have bruises. There's so many things you can learn just looking at a person in a room. And of course, I act as a companion. I give wheelchair rides. I talk to them. I write letters. I find out where they're coming from, what they like, what they enjoy to talk about, and and we go from there. And if they have dementia, you know, it's the same thing. I talk just like I'm talking to you and see where they are and accommodate.
How much time would you spend with one patient?
I'd spend at least 2 hours.
Really?
Each visit, and that would be maybe once a week. But I want to emphasize too that to be a hospice volunteer, you don't have to have direct care with patients. They also have hospice volunteers because some people say they're not comfortable with that. So there are things people can do that are in line with their own comfort zone. They can be involved with fundraising. They can do community education,
Oh, that's wonderful
outreach.
to know.
They have pet therapy. You may have a pet that you can get trained and they can come in and visit. And clerical work too.
One of the hospice volunteers that visited my dad when he was on hospice was a music therapist.
Okay.
So it was a young woman who played the guitar, and she came a handful of times and sang to him, and he loved it.
You know, I'm so glad you're saying that because a lot of times people have talents.
Yes.
And I have a blog. It's called Hospice and Nursing Homes blog. And the post I just put up yesterday, in fact, is 2 barbers. And they go into the nursing homes and
give haircuts.
They actually go into people's homes and give haircuts. And they have a video along with it so you can see them doing it. And these are people who they just decided to use their talent. So there are other things to do if you really don't want to be involved with patient care. But that's not depressing, some people assume, but each person has to know what they're comfortable doing.
You mentioned hair care.
Yeah.
We know that women, elderly women, one of the most important appointments of the week is to their hairdresser. And I know there are salons in almost every independent and assisted living. Are there enough salons, hair salons, in the nursing homes that you've been in?
I've seen them with salons. I'm not sure if they're enough.
Because that's something a hairdresser could do, right? Volunteer their time.
Well, right. In a nursing home, they could do that. Because some people have gone in and just done their nails or whatever. But the main thing is, in terms of volunteering, just do it and go in. And for people who have relatives or friends in nursing homes particularly, but also even those at home, because there's the research shows that caregivers, and particularly those who are caregivers at home or wherever they are, of people with dementia, have a higher loneliness factor than the general population, which means that there are some people, when you become the caregiver of someone with dementia or just someone who is terminally ill, sometimes your friends don't approach you as much. They think maybe you can't do whatever it is, the social thing that they want to do, or maybe they just don't want to talk about it.
Oh, that's very interesting. I've not heard that.
Yeah, so those, I'm saying those are things we need to reach out to.
Yes.
If you have friends or relatives, and what you can do is find out what needs you can fill. You know, it may be time, maybe finance, maybe you can just give them a break. Find out things services that may help them, and don't just tell them about it. Find a way for the service to come to them. So there are things other people can do to make the life of a caregiver.
The caregivers, the family caregivers.
The family caregiver and better, and also help with the patient.
Yeah,
but people in nursing homes are always happy to have visitors, and there are a lot of them who are very lonely because people don't visit them enough for whatever reason. And I have heard people, I shared this with you earlier, say, my mother has dementia, so I don't go because she doesn't know who I am. And it's not about you.
That's right.
It's about the resident, and they do need you. And you can, I mean, I've been with people with dementia many times, and I still cannot predict what they're thinking. Right. Because sometimes they go in and out, and they may be very aware of what's going on.
And they know when their family is not there.
And you really, as I said, you think of the years that they gave you.
Yeah.
And
it's a small thing to ask of people, but still we know it's really difficult, and that's why volunteers like you are so very important. And if our viewers are interested in volunteering, where do they start for hospice specifically?
If they're interested, I would say they can start with the Yellow Pages if they don't know of a hospice organization
So call
already.
a hospice
Right, just call
organization
and
or a nursing home.
they can do that too, but as I said, they can find a hospice organization in the Yellow Pages, contact them, ask for an appointment, and then go and just sit down and talk, and I'm sure they'll come up with something that maybe you might feel comfortable doing, and then you can, you'll probably have to get the certification. And this is not only for adults, they also have hospices that have teenagers and also people in college, and I really think that's a good thing to do, because nowadays particularly to have that service on your transcript, on your resume, employers,
it's required.
Employers look for that. In fact, they're finding that many people who are involved with service when they were younger like that, it says a lot about your character, and people look for that when they want to hire.
That's right. That's right. It's just good all the way around. All the way around. So you've transitioned from spending so much time as a volunteer into really the next stage of your career, which is primarily writing and speaking and really sharing what you've learned through your own experience. So tell us how that's going. And
it's going quite well. I've talked to a lot of groups. I've spoken at churches. I speak to AARP groups. I've also spoken to nurses and doctors and healthcare people. There are a lot of people out there. What I really would like to see happen more is just have more death conversations. It's a topic that's a taboo, as we said. People are not comfortable talking about that. I've even called one of my talks Your Last Great Adventure. And we're not comfortable in doing that in America as much as some other areas. And so we want to just start the conversations. And what is going on is enough people, their death is like the elephant in the room, and we don't want to deal with it until it sits in our lap and sticks its trunk in our faces. And we're going to have to deal with it. And it's so much better when you plan and prepare. You should have your advanced directives done. These are documents where you state what you want to happen to you if you become terminally ill. You don't have to wait till you get old to do this. You can have this done when you're young, because I know you've read about like the Quinlan case and people who were in their 20s and 30s, and then there were people arguing over should they, allow them to go to hospice or not. So we should also have our wills done. We should plan what we're going to do with our assets, our property, our finances, and these discussions should take place. And it would really be good if we started these discussions with children in terms of talking about death, so it's not just Halloween and with skeletons and it's scary and everything.
Yes, isn't that right?
And I also want to emphasize intergenerational partnerships. There are a lot of stereotypes about aging, and I know you talk about aging all the time, Anne Marie. And as early as 3 years old, children have already started picking up on these stereotypes, which are not good.
No, they're not.
Before our children at my school would go to visit the nursing home, we prepared them well, and we gave them pre and post tests, because I like to do research. And we asked them, what do you expect to see with the people? And these are fourth graders. And at fourth grade, they're already saying they're going to be grouchy. They'll be trying to get into my business, whatever business you have in the fourth grade. They won't understand me because they're so different. And there was a lot of negative things. And then when they got to the nursing home and were able to deal with these, talk to people, and here's a lady in her 80s talking about when she was on a basketball team. And they were funny, because they like they love children, so they were.
So it was a pleasant surprise for them.
When we gave them that same survey, when they came back, the percentages went way up where they had changed. So it's important not only for the children, because the research also shows that children do better academically and affectively when they have.
Just to jump back to one of the things you had said earlier about hospice is that most people, most families call hospice later than they should. Not too late, but it's later than they should.
Later than they should, but I'm not going to just say it's the families. a lot of times the healthcare people don't
Oh,
even bring
boy,
that
you
option
are-
up. They
you
don't bring
are
it up.
so right.
Because remember, they're more trained to, curative care. And so when it gets to the point where there is no more cure, some people may view that as a failure or may be reluctant. So it's not. That's one reason that sometimes the option is not brought up. Another reason is for religious reasons or cultural reasons.
What I like to do is recommend to families is just call the hospice and have a conversation with the social worker at that hospice. There's no commitment that needs to be made, but
Right.
just gather your information.
Right.
Francis, we have, believe it or not, come to the end of
Oh, wow.
30 minutes. Is there one or two thoughts you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Just to have more conversations about death and be open to the discussions. Get your own plans ready on what you would like at the end of the life.
And read Becoming Dead Right.
Becoming Dead Right.
A very successful book by Francis Shani Parker.
Right. And the
Well-
website is francisshaniparker.com.
There you go. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We have come to the end of Aging Well in America, and as always, we welcome your ideas, your topics, your questions. Please do send your any questions, ideas for future shows to right here to the Grosse Pointe War Memorial, and we will address them on this show. Thank you so much. Bye now.